Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I inherited my dad's piano, and that's not a funny intro, that's a real thing. Hi, I'm Trey, and I am joined by Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi, I'm known as the piano burner, but I promise I will not set fire to your father's piano.
Could it be like that Adele song? I set fire
Oh,
to the
yeah.
piano, but only one that could not be saved.
Right. Yes. And that story is on my social media. But yeah, I burned a piano and used it for a photo shoot while it was burning.
Hmm.
And yes, it was a piano that could not be salvaged, so it wasn't like I didn't commit too great of a musical sin.
Which I appreciate. Because I do have to say, when I was watching Iron Man, the first one, and he crashed through his whatever room you want to call that, right through a baby grand piano, my
Mm.
heart did sink just a little bit. But we won't get into that. So, what I would love to get into is a conversation with our fantastic guest today. And with that, Emily, would you introduce our guest?
I would. We are honored to welcome Dr. Rosilee Russell. She's an extraordinary classical pianist. She's an educator and an arts activist. She's also the founder and director of the Community School for the Arts and the Institute for Creative Arts, which is hard for me to get straight, but we'll talk about that. But it's about making arts accessible for young people. So um, thank you for being here, Rosilee.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be with both of you guys. And I'm listening to talking about burning pianos. And as a pianist, I'm glad you didn't burn a good one. That's all I could say.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Oh, no, we're actually down here at our new school trying to become an all Steinway school, which, if
Oh.
y'all know about Steinways, the best of the best. We're on our way. We only have to spend another hundred and something thousand to get a 7 foot concert grand, and will be an all Steinway school. So just a little
Cool.
more money to spend. But anyway, so yes, this piano burning thing, it's like, oh, what are they doing?
Not a normal thing in my
No,
world.
no.
No.
It's been an interesting photo shoot, I will say that. Definitely interesting. But anyway, it's great to be on the show with you all. I am here in Fort Smith, Arkansas, for your listeners. And interestingly, I know both of you all are up in the north. I grew up in Billings, Montana.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're talking about the story. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. I grew up in Billings, Montana, freezing cold up there, and I moved south when I went to college. I moved way south, like to Texas, and have stayed in the South pretty much ever since. But interesting, I'm going to tell you this quick little story. So I was born to older parents. They were over 40 when they found out that they were going to have a baby. I was a little bit of a surprise, like a total surprise. So for some reason, my mother prayed for me to play the piano before I was ever born. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, I
Wow.
immediately wanted to play. And so I started taking lessons when I was 7. And I have been playing now for literally over 50 years.
Wow.
And she, in typical fashion of my parents, my mother wanted me to make sure I had the best piano teacher, not just any piano teacher. So we had to wait for a few months because the piano teacher in Billings, who was the top, one of the top in the state, she was full. So weekly, my mother would call that teacher to get me in. And I
Wow.
finally got in. I was in second grade, and I took to it right away. I just loved it. And so then of course, I went on to school and studied for years. But that's my interesting little story about growing up. I was definitely a surprise, and my mother prayed for me to play before I was born. And so I remember telling her later in life, I'm like, when I was in high school, Mother, why did you pray for me to play the piano? We don't make any money doing that. And fortunately, I can say now in this century, there are lots of good jobs for creative people. And so there are ways to make money off of being in the arts and being in a creative field. So I'm really excited about that. I couldn't be more thrilled that my mother did that and that I ended up in the arts. So it's kind of my interesting little story. The other side thing about that is when I was a child, I loved sport. And we can talk some more about that. So I was very actively involved in athletics all the time I was growing up. So I played softball, I ran track, I played basketball, and I played tennis. And when I started college, I auditioned at Baylor University, which is in Texas, and I got in on a piano scholarship. Well, I also tried out for the tennis team, and I made the Baylor tennis team, and that was a crossroads, because that was the point my piano teacher said, will you be playing the piano 4 hours a day, or will you be playing tennis 4 hours a day? And you have to choose, because there is no way you can play professional college sports and be at a field like piano and study 4 to 6 hours a day. So that was my crossroads. And I stayed with music, of course. I mean, it's a lifetime thing. What can you say?
Yeah.
The arts for your life. And so that was an interesting thing. But the athletics have played a big part in what I do and in what I talk to students about. Because have either of you been in athletics? Are both of you athletic? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I played softball.
I played tennis, actually.
you play tennis, yeah.
And
So
volleyball.
you know the discipline and practice, and if you get a coach, they get after you, and you have to practice and practice and practice. Well, it's the same thing in the arts, and so we're trying to instill the same type of discipline in the arts that happen in athletics. I think in the arts, you're dealing with kids who are so sensitive. You have to be more careful as a coach. You don't just tell a kid, get over there and sit on the bench if you're not going to do right. You got to work with them a little bit more. They're going to be crying, right? I mean, you got to just be careful with art students. But we're teaching them the same kind of discipline that happened in athletics. And so that has served me very well as we've been working with our high school kids here. So anyway, that's my interesting story about getting my childhood, being in arts and athletics at the same time. I had a great, great time.
I identify a lot with that because when I got to my freshman year of college, like I went into the music major, and I also really wanted to go and I wanted to do the theatrical performances. However, the theater side and the music side had very conflicting schedules. And when it came to choose which one I wanted to do, I was like, I really love theater, but I really want to do classical music.
Yeah.
And yeah, choir was the sticking point because you were constantly singing, doing things,
Yeah.
and it was really hard to do both.
Right.
And then I can't imagine like those who are athletes who also want to go do music in college. It is
Too hard.
It is grueling.
Yeah. The coaches don't like it. Your professors in the music program, or if you're in theater, they don't like it. It's a turning point in college, I think, because you've got to decide, do I want to be a professional athlete? Am I good enough to be a professional athlete? Am I good enough to be a professional artist? Can I make a career in a creative field? What do I really want out of life? And that's a hard decision. I cried when I had to give up tennis, because to make a college team, it about killed me because I loved it. But I knew I was not going to be a professional athlete. And so, once you get to college, it's time to get down to business and really get to practicing your craft if you're going to go into it professionally, because you're competing with so many people for jobs and different creative fields. It's a pretty serious time. So, we're trying to prepare our high school kids to get ready for college so that they know when they go to college, they know exactly what they want to do. That takes some practice, takes some time, but college is a definite time to make some very serious decisions.
Yeah, it's some of the earliest decisions to make as a considered adult in the modern world.
Yes.
What I love about reading up on the school, and we'll get to school in a second, is that schools like this even exist. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about the school that we've made reference to a few times?
Sure. You made reference to two things: Community School of the Arts, which is the program that we've had going for quite a while. We actually started it. My career has been at a university. I've had university teaching experience for 30 plus years. And we started an after school pre-college program here at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith, which ran for 10 years, called the Academy of the Arts. Well, we knew we wanted to go out on our own, build our own facility, and then hopefully eventually have a performing arts high school. So in 2016, a group of us left the university, got a board together, and started Community School of the Arts, which was an extension of the program we had at the university. And what it is a after school arts enhancement. The idea is to make sure that no student is without arts opportunities. So we have lots of scholarships. We reach underserved. We have the best of the best student that wants extra work, extra training. And so we have, music, theater, dance, visual art programs going, and private lessons and everything. And kids can come once a week to those programs. They can come multiple times a week. They get involved in anything they want. And parents simply pay for whatever that student decides to enroll in, or we provide scholarships if there's a financial need. So that's what Community School of the Arts is. It's a great program. Lots of communities in our nation and even in this state have those kinds of programs. When we started it, there were children everywhere wanting to get involved in it because we didn't have anything really like this in Fort Smith. So that's one of our programs, and it meets in our new facility. After school, kids come and participate in that. Then as we got going, because of my background in the arts and knowing about these performing and visual arts high schools that are they're immersive, they're intensive, they have a rigorous arts curriculum. They're not what I call integrative. They don't integrate the arts into math, science, English, social studies just as a means of getting kids through a course. This is an immersive art school where if you are interested in being in a creative field and you have, whether you have talent or not, or don't know if you do, this is a school for kids to come and literally be involved daily between 3.5 and 4 hours a day in an arts curriculum plus their academics. So, and it is an immersive, it's a highly professional arts high school where we've hired professional theater directors, musicians, visual artists, and their training. It's a pre-college training so that they're really prepared to go to college.
Wow.
And let me tell you, the kids do love it. It's a small school right now, of course, because we're in our first year, but the kids love it. We had a snow day last Friday and they were depressed that they didn't get to come to school because they wanted to be with everybody and be in their arts program. I mean, they don't like to even go home. They want to be together all the time. They want to be practicing and doing their thing. So they love it. The parents love it and the teachers love it. It's a wonderful environment. The issues with fighting and concerns like that does not exist at this school. And as you both know, when you're involved in arts actively, your academic grades and scores go up. And that's exactly what's starting to happen here. We have very smart students. Their academic scores are doing well. We'll be a top school. And so our board, once we got our board going through CSA, we started a fundraising campaign to get a building built and get this high school established. And it has been quite a journey and not an easy one. I don't recommend, let me just say, doing this once in life is great. I'm not going to do it a second time. I'm good. If we can just get this rolling and get 200 or 300, 500 students in the program and get all the programs set, I am going to be thrilled, and I'm just going to sit down and watch. And so that's what the Institute for the Creative Arts is. It's the Performing and Visual Arts High School, and it is the first in the state of Arkansas. And it is desperately needed, desperately. There is, just to give you an example, Booker T. Washington in Dallas, the New World Performing Arts High School in Miami, the Los Angeles High School for the Performing Arts is, I believe it's the #1 public performing arts high school in the nation. The Baltimore School for the Performing Arts is a public performing arts high school. It ranks in the top 5. And then you've got LaGuardia in New York. Of course, these are all big cities. Fort Smith is not near that big, but Fort Smith, Arkansas is a smaller state, and Fort Smith's one of the largest cities in the state. So it just fit for us to do this. So anyway, that is kind of what the Institute is. We have currently a visual art department that's heavy into digital art. We're heading toward gaming, animation, graphic design. Of course, we have the traditional art, painting, drawing, charcoal, and our artist teacher is very big on murals. He is a muralist, so
Cool.
that's going to be added in. Then we have a wonderful musical theater program. That's going to expand to technical theater here pretty quickly. Then our dance program, that's coming. That one's a slower program. Dance is not simple. It's not for the faint of heart because of the amount of practice you have to do if you're in a dance program. And then our music program is, it's a contemporary program like you would see at a University of Southern California, where you have your contemporary ensembles, jazz, pop, rock, and very heavy into digital. So digital composition, film scoring, arranging, and we have a state-of-the-art recording studio. So we're big into that recording and want to teach these students how to do the film scoring, because we're about to add film, and then they're going to need to write music for animation, game design. So it's that kind of program that doesn't compete with the other schools in the area. We do not have a marching band. We have no sports. There's no reason for a marching band. And you are not going to be marching in marching band when you're 30. Whereas you may be a studio musician somewhere till you retire, and you may be a recording engineer until you retire. You know, those kinds of things. We're trying to make sure we have programs that students can get jobs from. So it is a really cool place. I can't tell you how excited the kids are, which makes me excited because I want to see them excel. So that's kind of, that's a long way around what you just asked.
I love it. Though, if any of our listeners out there have a time machine so that I can go back and like attend such a high school, that this would be amazing.
Right.
Yeah. We have people walk in the door almost every day and say that. That is just so funny. They're like, I wish I had this when I was growing up.
Well, Emily and I have talked about this kind of off of the air a little bit, and I think maybe we've alluded to it. But when I was going through college, there was never really something to talk about how to make this a career, make being in the arts a career, give people business savvy, talk about setting people up for success of how to look at this from a business standpoint,
Right.
while also balancing the love of music. There's also that component of, we understand you want to make money from this, so let's talk about how we can marry those two things together.
Yeah.
And so to hear you talk about, like, okay, you want to do this, absolutely welcome in, but let's also talk about how we're going to accomplish this.
Yes. And you know, a lot of artists, a lot of creative folks, business is not their strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good to either teach them some of that in high school, the business of the arts, or the business. Yeah, we have one young new teacher that's getting ready to start his master's in arts administration. It's a very good idea. I highly recommend it because that'll give you the business side of things. And I highly recommend kids, when they get into college, to take the business of arts or music business, because there is that side, and students need to learn to work with numbers, budgets, finance, you know, that kind of thing, because that can be tricky. I think about dancers. They want to own their own dance studio. Well, that costs money, and you have to know how to get money, to spend money, to have, you know, hire people and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah, because just because you know how to dance doesn't mean owning a dance studio means you'll be dancing all day.
it does not mean that. That is a very good point. And then getting people hired and getting them paid, and on and on and on it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's been this has been quite a project. We've been very fortunate. This community has been so supportive because what we haven't talked about is we've built this new facility. And that's really why we wanted to be separated from the university. You know, you can't be fundraising when you're under another organization. And we needed our own facility to have this high school. And so we built a facility, and I would invite people all across the nation to come see it, because you're going to want to come anyway, because we are right next door to the United States Marshals Museum, which is the only one in the nation. And so come for a tour for the U.S. Marshals Museum. We're next door. You can come tour the Center for the Creative Arts, and we'll show you around. And it's really a cool facility. It has a 350-seat theater in it, and a black box theater, and dance studios, and the recording studio, and rehearsal halls, and all this good stuff. And so we're still finishing a portion of the building. We've got about 4 million left to go, but we've raised 14.5 million, which has taken us about 5 years, 6 years. But we've had very good help, some really good donors, some foundations. But that's a big project. But we needed the facility to start the high school. And so we're actually considered a charter school, which for folks who are listening, people say the word charter and they think it's private. Well, charter in the state of Arkansas is public. So these kids get to come for free. That's a big deal. And we keep telling everybody, it is free, open to all Arkansas
Wow.
residents. Yeah. And we are within walking distance of Oklahoma. So we tell Oklahoma students they can come to our after school programs. But if they want to come to the high school, they've got to get themselves an Arkansas residence, because, you know, education doesn't cross state lines as far as state funding goes. So we do have Oklahoma students that have multiple residents, and one in Oklahoma, one in Arkansas. So that's worked out nicely for us. But our new facility is it's wonderful. It's on our riverfront. So yes, the nation can come visit and go see the Marshals Museum and come for a weekend and have a great time. We'll entertain them and tour them.
That's amazing. Like I honestly have to say, because Emily and I have talked about going to see Sandra, our producer.
Yeah,
So why not just take a nice little tour
there you
uh,
go. Yeah.
and come visit? I am what I heard when you were describing all of these different programs and all of these different things that are part of the school itself.
Sure.
It sounds a lot like you're keeping up with the modern times, and you're keeping up with things that are emerging technologies, emerging ideologies.
Yes.
Um, so I I love that as a concept. Like, what is kind of fueling that thing to really focus on these new and emerging ideas?
I think the main thing for me is I don't want to leave these kids as what we used to call starving artists. So, for example, sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring for someone to either hire you for a gig or buy one of your paintings. I don't want that to happen. And there are so many jobs now in the arts that are really, I mean, really great jobs. So that's probably the driving force. However, the arts have changed. You all know this even probably better than I do, how much the whole world of creativity and artistic talent is changing because of the digital world. And I would be the first to tell you, I am not a technology person. So we hire people who are good at what they do. So we have a wonderful instructor who knows the entire recording studio, all the digital music composition, and we have a wonderful instructor that knows all about digital art and can do all of those great things, because I cannot. And so those things are taking over the world. Even to go to a symphony concert, for example, is now it has technology involved. I mean, right? You go and you don't just sit and listen to the symphony orchestra. Sometimes, a lot of times, you're watching a video, you're watching a film behind it, or you've got lighting effects or something going on that is more than just being a listener in a concert. And so this whole digital world has taken over, but it's providing other jobs and really neat things that students can do. So that's probably the main thing. The other thing is that because we are a state funded public school, we want, just by nature of charter in Arkansas, that means specialized. You can focus on something, whether it be a STEM, uh, whatever, arts, whatever. And so we're an art school, so we are a specialized school, but we are state funded. So we don't really want to compete with the other public schools in the area. So we don't need a marching band. They have great marching bands. We don't need certain aspects of arts programs. For example, we probably really don't need a choir per se. We need vocal ensembles of various types that meet each student's need. Not that we don't have a choir. We come together as a choir for musical theater because they have to work together to learn their whole, theater performance. So, but a choir per se, maybe not. Do we need a large symphony orchestra? Maybe not. Do we need a jazz orchestra? Probably. Do we need a rock band? Definitely. Those kinds of things is what are the things we're looking at to really meet the needs of these kids and to be different from the public schools. And I'm speaking to the choir here. You all know the changes in the arts probably as well or better than I do because the times they have changed.
And they change every day. So yeah.
They do. I was telling someone the other day, back when I was in graduate school I went to graduate school in Kansas City at the conservatory. I went to school to study with a person, a mentor, Mr. Richard Cass, who is a famous international touring concert artist. And I went there to study with him, as we typically do when we go to graduate school. We want mentor teachers. But I remember let me think now, it was the late 80s, early 90s, in the early 90s. He was talking about New York City, and New York's kind of the benchmark. And he said, people in New York now are beginning the time when a pianist could just walk out on stage, never say a word to their audience and just play a concert, that time is fading. And he said, you have got to learn, he's telling all of us this in graduate school, time to start learning how to become an entertainer, speak to your audience, engage them. And so the first thing that happened when I got here, my colleague, who is one of my absolute favorites, he was the jazz band director. He's still here. He and I are great friends. Entertainer, Mr. Entertainer, this community absolutely loves this guy. And I would watch him, and I got involved in some of the antics and the jokes that would go on stage for his jazz band concerts. And before I knew it, I was beginning to evolve into being able to entertain as a pianist on stage. And my audiences loved it. I went from my first year to 100 to 600 or 700 people in a performance, packing it out because we were entertaining. And we did one time. It wasn't always just me on stage. A lot of times it was, but we did one concert one time, 4 pianos and some kids. So I invited 3 of my other friends. We brought 4 pianos out on stage, and one of my colleagues arranged several of the best numbers out of The Sound of Music. And we had 7 of our, 9 of our kids, whatever, 7 of our kids, the Von Trapp family, out of our after school programs, sing and dance on stage while 4 pianos were accompanying them. The audience loves that kind of thing. It was so much fun. And, it evolves when you do things like that and you get a great audience.
And it doesn't sound like it needs to be a Victor Borges sort of performance where it's like over the top comedy. It's just, it's doing something to engage with the audience, maybe something that they weren't expecting.
They're not passive anymore. And that's right. They're not, it's not what they're expecting. And by the way, I do play that piece that Victor Borge does, the Second Hungarian Rhapsody, which by Liszt, which is I would always tell my audience, this is the tune that Tom and Jerry would play on the old cartoons where the mouse would be in the piano and driving Tom the cat crazy.
Yeah.
It's a famous piece, and I would play it, and I would always tell my audience, uh, this is a great entertaining piece, but don't be fooled. It's one of the most difficult pieces for a pianist to play, and they would just laugh, and they would be so entertained by that, watching it go all over the piano. And then I would follow that with some fun music from the 20s and 30s that followed the ragtime era, that are some jazz pieces called piano novelties. And my audience just loved it. And so I didn't stay, I played great classical music, the Beethovens, Liszt, Chopin, lots of great romantic music. But I tried to play things that I knew I could, in some sense, entertain my audience with, but that were horribly difficult for me to play. And it's fun. And engaging the kids on stage, either the teenagers or children on stage with you, with professional artists, it is the greatest thing in the whole world to do that. And the kids, they get to be on stage with professional artists. And that is a neat, neat, neat experience. So those are some of the kind of fun things that we've done down here. I'm anticipating in the near future to be on stage with some of our high school kids and looking forward to it. So, yeah. So anyway.
Speaking of those kids, what are some of the ways you've firsthand seen in some of these individuals that arts has made a difference?
I'll tell you the biggest thing, which is always, it's like a flower blossoming, is to watch these kids in a short period of time, and I do mean a short period of time, maybe 4 weeks, go from shy to completely engaged, communicating with their friends, self-esteem, they're comfortable, being able to get on stage comfortably, being able to talk to adults, being able to communicate. And I don't mean by texting, I mean one-on-one, face-to-face communicating like children and teens should be able to do. That is the most rewarding thing, because so many teenagers, they can't talk. They won't talk. They can talk, they just won't talk. And they don't communicate well with adults. And I don't know how they're ever going to get a job texting, because they got to meet with the boss one-on-one. They got to go to an interview. And so that has been so rewarding, just watching that evolution of these kids come out of their shell and realizing that they can do something great, and that they have talent, and that they're willing to put themselves out there to explore it in a safe space. It's a safe zone. Some of these kids out of public school can be bullied, and that's not cool. There's none of that here. And we're a team, and they're a family. They hug each other a lot. They're a family. They really do love each other. I mean, they're really cute.
That must be wonderful to see.
It's different. I know my husband taught high school a while back, and when he sees these kids hug each other, he said, they never did that at my high school. They don't do that at a traditional high school. And so it's just kind of neat to see.
There's something about like the arts that brings out the emotional side of things. Like to perform arts without any kind of emotion is so sterile feeling.
Right.
So there's an intangible concept. I don't know if that's a real word, but we're going with it. But there's something magnetic about how much the arts can bring people together. And for young people to find that so early in life and start cultivating that association is magic.
It is. I totally agree with you. And you brought up an interesting word about intangible. You can spot certain talents that I call them intangibles. It's the same thing in an athlete. You could see a little 3-year-old throw a baseball and know if he can do it already. A lot of times you see little things. Same thing with children in the arts. You see little intangibles and stage presence. You can develop it, of course, and kids who are starting with us at 9th grade that have never been in the arts or never been on stage, they're developing really well. But when you can put a child, a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, and get them involved that early, that's one of the reasons we started those after-school programs, get young children involved. You see those intangibles so early that, wow, it's just fun to watch them develop. But this year we've got ninth graders that have never been on stage before, and now they've already in 6 months been on stage 3 times in major events, and they're getting pretty comfortable. It's pretty amazing. It's feeling like an art school. But we have to, when we started the school, we had to be very strict about the number of hours a day that they're in their arts programs, because they have to be in them half of their school day or we can't do it. I mean, you've got to have hours and hours every day in your arts field to do it.
Right.
It's just a lot of work. But yeah, that they're coming along.
And please don't take this question. I will tread lightly with this question because I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But there is sometimes a perception of what I see from coming from families of putting a lot of pressure on young people to become essentially the next Mozart, the next Victor Borgia, the next like it
Sure.
thing. And it's put so much pressure on these kids.
It
So
does.
for parents that are listening who are, really encouraging of their kids to go into the arts, what advice do you have for them to not become the stage parents and really cultivate like a true love of performance in their
Right.
kids?
You brought up a very interesting point and a serious one, because kids can either get turned off or become very scared or overly stressed, and you don't want that. What I would say about our organization, and I've been very strict about it in the time from, well, nearly 20 years now, I've been working with pre-college kids. We do not allow a lot of parent involvement. They get to stay on the sidelines like you would in athletics. Otherwise, you don't want parents engaged so much that they're telling the directors how things should go. That is not a good thing. And so we keep parents on the sidelines, and we encourage parents just to let the teachers work with the kids, because the kids are bonding to the teachers, to their mentor teachers or their directors or their vocal coaches or their acting coach or their dance coach. They're bonding with those people, which are the people we want them to bond with for their arts activities. And we don't want parents telling teachers what they can and cannot do. We do not allow it. And so we don't allow parents in our children's program, well, at the high school level either. We don't allow parents backstage. I mean, there's a rare exception that we would, but we have our team of people working backstage so that the children know what they're to do backstage. They don't have a parent interrupting or interfering. And we try to encourage them, the parents, to help their kids practice at home, but simply telling them, okay, this is the hour you're supposed to be practicing. They don't need to engage with the child or the teen to help them practice. They just need to ensure that they're doing their practicing. That's what we encourage. Because, you do not want parents like you get in athletics, where you got somebody telling the coach that their kid needs to be the star quarterback when he can't throw the ball 10 yards. You know what I'm saying? And that's a tricky one. I'll tell you what we find down here, and you'll understand this. We're in the SEC for college football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so football down here is a huge deal. I don't care if you have a high school of, 20 kids, you got a marching band because you got a football team, because these kids want to go to a SEC school and to play college football. So what's bad, and this happens occasionally, I've met a few parents like this, is to have a parent that just wants their son to play sports so badly and their son doesn't want to. They want to be in the arts. That's really tough. How do you tell the parent to stop doing that? I mean, you can't, because these kids, they just want to be in the arts. They don't want to play football. And we don't want them to play football because we don't want them to get hurt, And so that's kind of an interesting thing that goes on down here in the South because of the football. You've got Arkansas, you've got all the Texas teams, you've got OU, we're right here by University of Oklahoma, great football team, Alabama, all those teams. So all these schools, they're pushing football, and a lot of our kids, they don't want to play football. And so we have that issue occasionally, not often. I've only met a handful, but it happens.
Well, it's interesting too because when you started speaking at the beginning of the show, we were talking about sports versus arts
Yeah,
and how how that played out in your own life with sports helping you understand the arts or how the skills from either one could work with each other. And it brought to mind Herschel Walker, who, if
oh,
anybody
yes.
knows, was an NFL player who took ballet.
That's right. And who was it? I can't think of his name all of a sudden. A great player off the Dallas Cowboys that won Dancing with the Stars one year.
Oh
Emmett
yeah.
Smith. Yeah. Oh, yes. And then the famous movie years ago with, um, can't think of these things now that we're talking about this, about all of the music students and all of the people in theater. And no, all of the football team needed to study ballet. Kind of an interesting notion, but yes, Herschel Walker and Emmett Smith, they could dance, couldn't they? Great players, great football players.
Well, and how it actually helped their playing.
It
Yeah.
did. Yeah, it did. Definitely. Sports for me, like I said earlier, it's about the discipline and focus because the arts, when you get a kid in college, and see, when I first got here in 1990, our university was not a 4-year university, it was a 2-year community college. So we were getting students that wanted to be music majors that had not had a strong background in the arts. Maybe they played in a band at home or in their garage and played a little and wanted to be a music major. I literally have had to turn students away before that wanted to start piano at college. They wanted to be a piano major. That's too late. Not going to happen. And so the discipline and the focus of the arts and athletics and getting that training younger and becoming disciplined with it really makes a difference for kids to get into college and to go to college wherever they want to go.
Mhm.
And so the two have worked together very well for me, and trying to instill that discipline now into our high school kids. They're starting to understand that this is not just come to class and sing for a little while and then go home and not think about it till tomorrow. No, go home, go get to your voice lesson, go home and practice, all that kind of thing. And so they're beginning to learn that. And it just takes time.
Something that you were talking about with, I'm so sorry, let me organize my thought for a second. Um, we've talked about how people have to make a decision between which path they're going to choose.
Mhm.
But I also want to put out there that you don't necessarily have to decide between doing one thing or the other. You can keep both in your life. You
Mhm.
may just do one more than the other one.
Exactly.
So, like for me, I love music. I don't do as much music anymore because I'm more focused on like education and my job with learning and development. But I
Sure.
love music. I love performing, and I still love incorporating that into my life.
Yes.
So if music turns out not to be the thing that you pursue or whatever form of arts, you are still an artist by doing that, or by keeping that in some capacity in your
Oh,
lifetime.
that is a really good point because virtually every community has, some kind of either community orchestra, band. They may have some kind of dance program for adults. There's always, like, we have the Fort Smith Chorale, which is really good, and our Fort Smith Symphony. And adults get to be in those programs. So, and I played tennis till I was 30 something on the side for fun. And so, you go that way. But you're right. You're always an artist, and there are so many things you can do, even if you don't pursue that. And at our high school right now, we're still working on curriculum and trying to streamline things, but we do allow students that are unsure of their arts field to take two different programs because you don't want to do that if you can avoid it in college because it costs money in college to be changing your major. And so, we know about that. We know how expensive college is. And so we
Mhm.
want to give them a chance to try a taste of, some of them really love art and music. So they're taking art classes plus music classes. Well, by the time they leave here, they will probably know which area they want to pursue, or if they want to try to go toward a hybrid degree. so that they're not wasting time in college, trying to get them there to where they know where they want to go. And yeah, but you're absolutely right. You can enjoy the arts if it's not going to be your field forever. Gosh, you can enjoy it the rest of your life and participate in it, not leave it, you know.
So please don't. Anyone who's listening to this, don't leave the arts ever, please.
No. We need all kinds of creative people doing things in this world.
I feel like that's not a thing. In fact, last week we interviewed a couple of playwrights that were like, they run a whole theater for people who have been involved with theater that are elderly, basically.
Oh,
and they talked, it was Len and Tim, and they talked at length about how it's in you. Art, once it's there, it's in you, and stopping for them is not an option.
No, I would feel
Yeah.
lost without arts in my life. Oh my goodness, that'd be terrible. Hey, I was going to tell you, I think you all know this, but you are interviewing, I believe it'll be, it may be this month and definitely next month. You're going to get to speak with our extraordinary director of dramatic arts. She's our theater director, and our extraordinary director of art and design, our visual artist. And she's the muralist, and she does teach digital art as well, but her strength is, early digital art, not animation or gaming. That's someone else. But
is that Jenny?
No, her name is Miss Ray Tedderton.
That's February 24th.
All right. And then Miss Sarah Mae Lamar is our theater director. And they're at this high school. So you're going to hear same song, second verse, third verse about these kids. And Ray is coming on, in February, and then Sarah's coming on after she finishes the production of Chicago. We've got a big production, and they're extraordinary. Neither one of them are from Fort Smith. We did national searches for these people. They're extraordinary. These kids have mentor teachers right now at 9th grade. They can come back to these two teachers later in life and get help from them. I view it as a lineage. They're studying with Miss Lamar or Miss Tedderton, who studied with. And so and they need these mentor teachers even now at their age. And so, you get ready to be entertained. They're great. They are great, and they're exceptional teachers.
It sounds like it. Like it definitely sounds like they would not be there if they were not exceptional.
Yeah, we did some searching because we wanted good ones. We've got to stand out from the other schools. So we got some good ones.
Well, Rosilee, I do want to take just a moment. I love the work that you're doing with the school, and I love that this is the first school of the arts that's specifically focused on the arts in Arkansas. I do want to take a moment to kind of focus on your work as a solo performer, as a pianist.
Sure.
I'm curious. There are pieces that I'd love to sit down and plunk out on the piano, but from your standpoint, what are some composers that you find yourself coming back to consistently that just fill you with that love of music?
Probably my favorite is Chopin. I cannot lie. Yeah, I cannot lie. I love the Romantics. I love certain Beethoven pieces, certain ones, some of the sonatas, all of the Chopin works. I'll tell you, I play Rachmaninoff, but I play it carefully. Let me just say that, carefully. And here's why. If you know about Rachmaninoff, his patterns are not exactly the same each time. So his music is harder to memorize, harder to remember, and it's the patterns are so big that it's technically so difficult that you really got to be up for it. And whereas the patterns, for example, in Beethoven and Chopin, they fit the hands well. They follow certain patterns that are easier to remember, still horribly technically difficult. Anything you do at that level at the piano is hard. I'm not going to lie. But Rachmaninoff is very difficult, and it has a lot to do with the technical, the way it lays out on the piano and the memory. I play the Rachmaninoff second piano concerto, and it's, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous, but it's hard. I have not played the third, which is even harder. But yeah, Chopin, Beethoven, Brahms, Liszt. Liszt is lots of fun. The second Hungarian Rhapsody and the sixth Hungarian Rhapsody are delightful. And then I play some of the other Liszt pieces. Unfortunately, I had a very bad back injury about 4 or 5 years ago. And prior to that, I had a shoulder surgery that didn't go well. And so as over the last 10 years, I'll say, as we've been developing these programs in this school, I have played less. I had a 20 plus year touring career where I traveled as the artist in residence at the university, played all over the state, played in other states, played at the White House, that kind of thing. And then got to play a lot with the students as we were starting that after school program. But as we've been working on this high school because of my back injury, I haven't been playing as much. However, it's getting better. And I think, like I said, I'm going to play with these high school kids again and do that. I really want to, especially if we're going to get a Steinway grant. I want to play the new Steinway. But yeah, I can't lie. I love those romantic pieces, the big pieces that entertain, that are like technical pieces for the piano that are entertaining in some sense to the audience and beautiful at the same time, you know.
Chopin's,
So yeah, that's me. It's, you know, what can I say? That's what I love.
Chopin's B-flat minor nocturne, I think, is probably one of my favorites.
I will have to go back and listen to that one. That one's not, I'm thinking which one that is. I haven't listened to the nocturnes in a while.
If I get the key wrong, I'm sorry. It's the one of which, when I listen to it, the melody sounds like blowing wind, and it's done in such a way that I feel like it's wind blowing at night, and you can
Okay,
almost feel the kind of rustling of the trees as you're
sure.
listening to it.
The nocturnes are beautiful.
They
They are
really are.
beautiful. Yeah,
Um,
calming. They have a calming influence on our spirits.
and they are harmonically just interesting to listen to.
They are. Yeah, Chopin's harmony is beautiful. Very interesting to listen.
Well, this is
Yeah.
good homework for everybody. Can you say the name of that one again, Trey, just so everybody knows what to go look up now?
Sure. The one I'm talking about is Chopin's B-flat minor nocturne.
Nocturne. Yes.
Excellent.
The title might be incorrect, so please don't hold me to that. It's been
I
a
will
second.
I'll check it. I'll
We'll
check it
find
out.
it. We
Yeah,
can
well-
post it on our social media too when we
Yeah.
find it. We'll find it on YouTube or something.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Rosilee, we have a couple last couple of questions for you to
Sure.
round this out. First and foremost, I want to ask, if you had to give advice to someone who's just getting started in the arts, whatever kind of art form they are going to choose, what
Mhm.
advice would you give them?
Well, if it was to a parent, I would say if you have a child, you need to explore the arts. That would be the first thing. Do not miss it, and start them when they're young. I would ask the child what they're kind of interested in. You know, if it was a musical instrument, let's start at the appropriate age. If it was something else, I'd get them lessons. I would try things as young as, you know, if it was dance, it's typically age 3. If it's Suzuki violin, it's 3, 4, or 5. If it's piano, it's 5 or 6. But I would try these things. I would try little acting lessons. I'd see if they like theater. So that's what I would say to a parent. Start them as young as possible.
Mhm.
If it's a teenager, I would tell them that you are a creative person. You were born with some creative abilities that we need to explore those and find out what they are. And that you have creative talents, you just probably don't know what they are yet. And that I would encourage you to come try, you know, if they're here in our area, come try our school. Let's find your talents. Because I think the other thing I would say about arts, when you can find your creative talent, no one can take that away from you. And it builds self-esteem, whereas you can lose all the money you have. I mean, let's face it, you can lose it all. But people can't take away your talent. It will be with you for life, and it builds your self-esteem, and you will be able to use it in ways, whether it's in a career or just for your own personal enjoyment. You will be able to use it in ways that you won't even imagine until you explore it, and you'll make other people happy with it. You will bring enjoyment to others. So that's probably what I would say. I'm always telling parents, get your child involved in the arts. That's my big thing, because they need to explore it, just like athletics. Let's explore and see what they can do.
My brother actually joined ballet, kind of similarly to the other athletes that we've mentioned, specifically because he was a kicker, and
Oh,
he needed to be able to get his leg like well above just like 90-degree angle in
yeah,
order to get the most efficient sort of kick to the other side of the field.
that is
And
very cool.
to this day, he talks about how much ballet like truly helped him.
I bet. That is just so neat. I had
Yeah.
never thought about that for a kicker. Now that when I watch college football and the Super Bowl this weekend, I'm going to be asking myself, I wonder if that guy ever took ballet.
Yeah. The last thing that I want to ask is more of a personal question.
Okay.
And this is one we like to ask all of our guests. So uh, you are sitting down to lunch,
Okay.
and it's just the other person on the side of the table. You're able to pick their brain. You are just having a conversation.
Okay.
Who is that person, alive or dead, that's sitting across from you at that table having lunch with you?
Oh boy. We haven't talked about this person, but just right off the top of my head, we have not talked about this person. But you met him just before we went on air, and that would be my husband, Philip, because we have a little joke at home. This is so cute. Because I'm you can probably tell, fairly strong-willed person. You got to push these things forward if you want to get something done. And so I'll tell Philip, by the way, I adore my husband. The Lord put him on my doorstep, and I adore the man. We've been married for 20 years now. And anyway, we've done this whole thing together with all of our community people that have been so gracious to be involved and very actively involved. So I'll come up with some idea or something to Philip, and I'll say, "Hey, Philip, what do you think?" And he'll say, in his very southern drawl, he'll say, "Well, might be all right." And as soon as he says that, that means shut it down, don't do it. Rather than telling me, "Don't you dare do that," he just says it very calmly. So I value his advice, because I'll just simply sit down and say, "Hey, what do you think we need to do? Where are we going to go with this?" And he's a college educator. He was in teacher education, and he has the best advice. He keeps us on track. So now, if it was a famous person, my mother's no longer living, so she would be the other one I'd be talking to, my mother and dad. But if it was a famous person, who would I want to talk with? Gosh, I don't know what people usually say if they're talking about famous people.
It's a wide range.
It's a very wide range.
Yeah.
Yeah. Golly, that's a tough one as far as a famous person goes. My husband gives such wonderful advice. He is the person I sit down with across the table, and he's the one I trust more than anything. So I'll leave it at that.
That's a solid answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Phil Russell, when you listen to this, go kiss your wife. She loves you.
Yeah, I do. Oh, this was fun. We should do this again sometime. This is fun. I enjoy visiting with y'all.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Well, thank you for having this. This is a great thing to have. Get the arts out there. The world needs more arts. Let's come together and have some fun.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Well, we want to make sure to shout out Rosilee and her work that she's doing alongside of Dr. Russell. So please go check out the Institute for the Creative Arts. You can find that at icafortsmith.org for more information. You can also follow them on Instagram at icafortsmith to follow along with their journey in their first year of being open. Yay!
Yes, yay! We hope to really be rolling in about 3 or 4 years from now, hopefully. Whew.
Well, as we close this episode out, we want to thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Modern Romantic Podcast. For behind-the-scenes content and additional conversations that you can't hear anywhere else, please go check out our Patreon and you can find us there under The Mod Rom. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.